I'm not really. You do, but she brought me honey, so I'm kind of obliged to. She's got politics.
Oh, I thought you would be nicer to her
For what?
because she gave you honey.
Yeah, but she hasn't been here for like ages. You think she brought me honey because she likes me? It's politics.
I am a political science major.
So yes,
So speaking of which, do you think philosophy leans towards the more like negatives mindset versus like a positive mindset, or does it like remain in like the middle?
so there.
Sorry.
No, why? There was a guy around the 15th century, a young kid, kind of like your age, a bit younger. His father was a lawyer. He went to school to become a lawyer. This young, fiery kid, Martin Luther. On his way back home, there was a thunderstorm and he was scared. So he began praying to the Saint Anna, that if I'm not crucified, by the thunderbolts, maybe I can go back to my father's house and change my goal in life instead of becoming a lawyer. Jesus Christ. Maybe I could become a monk. And it's not like today, where people make promises and then they change it the next moment. So he goes home and tells his dad that, ABCD happened and I'm going to become a monk. Of course, his father was very angry, but that's besides the point. He began this fight with the Catholic Church. They tried to kill him, silence him in some shape or form, but they couldn't. He said this particular statement that reason is the whore of Athens. You know what a whore is? I mean, prostitution was a sacred art. And maybe we can talk about sex and prostitution and temples and religion and gods and women and the power that live inside them at a different date. But the thing with prostitution is that you can't really commit to anyone. You're there to win. You're there to make money. And so you can YouTube people like Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Sam Harris, all these different ridiculous people. And, they have a debate. And one person says A, the other person counters and says B, and this goes on and on and on to no end. And so one of the cunningness of rationality or reason is that it always finds a way to kind of weasel out of being checkmated. It becomes a whore, It always tries to justify its position in some shape or form. I don't know if you watched this segment on Joe Rogan with Dave Smith and Douglas Murray, I think. They're both of Jewish tradition. Dave Smith is a bit more detached from the tradition, and so he's able to look at this, I suppose, a bit more objectively. Douglas Murray is an English, I suppose, thinker, if you want to call him that, a thinker. And so he'll pretzel himself into defending Israel and all the things he has done for the past 60 years or so. And it really doesn't matter what anybody says in that debate. No one is ever going to change their position, and just in case they find themselves to be checked, as if they're playing chess, they're always trying to find a way to justify their position, and they'll always go back trying to add footnotes to their position. What was your question?
My question was if philosophy, if the thinking
That's
behind
right.
philosophy tends to be more negative than positive, or the opposite.
If you look at most of the sacred literature, whether it's the Quran or the Bible, the New Testament, the Dhammapada, the Rig Veda, the Upanishads, Tao Te Ching, even some of the literature that's come from the native tradition, they're not very positive. I mean, their positivity is limited to the point that human beings have potential, but for them to attain that potential, they have to overcome a lot of things. It's like being an alcoholic. Are you able to overcome your addiction? Absolutely. Is it easy? No. And so even though there is a potential for you to overcome your addiction, the challenges that you have to go through and the things you have to sacrifice and overcome, they're just huge. That's like it's no different from like Jesus leaving Nazareth, in hopes of finding God and coming back and expressing what he found. I mean, that's what it takes to overcome any addiction. The meaning of life for many, at least in the Christian sense for 1,000 years, has been that life is a veil of tears. You wake up, you weep. You live out your day, you weep. You go to bed, you weep. It's just hard work. There is no place to rest. There are no oases to be found. You're always like chasing after money to pay for rent, kids, famine. The fact that you have a soul that's unsaved and you need the keys to paradise, of course, being in the hands of the Catholic Church. So it doesn't matter where you are, what you do, you always have to struggle to find an element of peace in life. So for the longest time for us, at least in the Christian realm, life has been one of suffering, no different than what the Buddha preached some 2,000 years earlier. Something about our perspective towards life began to change. You leave your village, you go into big cities, you're always full of life, you're always full of desires, there is hope inside you. Even if your marriage falls apart, there are like all these other people you can go out with. You can make money in all sorts of ways. And for the first time, what you and I began to experience is that you don't really have to wait to be happy until you're dead. Because once you die, you find yourself in Garden of Eden, hopefully, or someplace where God will look at you. A borrowing from the Egyptian tradition will take out your heart, weigh it on the scale. If it goes down, it means that you've committed a lot of crimes. Purgatory was added later on. You're baptized a little bit, then you'll go to paradise. Around the 18th, 19th century, everything changed. You could actually be happy down here. You don't have to get married because of financial reasons. You can actually get married because you love. You don't have to get a job in a factory that sucks the life out of you. Your job can be an extension of your soul, your creativity. You can be like a Snoop Dogg or a Justin Timberlake. You can make money by living out your passion. And you come to class and you look at your professors and you demand that they say things a specific way, look at you in a certain way, please you all the time. I mean, all of a sudden you walk into life demanding that life gives you what you want. And just in case it doesn't, you'll take life to, what's her name? That woman, the Judge Judy. I want to sue life. Why? Because I asked life to do A, B, C, D, it didn't, And so this idea of you and I living a relatively happy life, comfortable life did not exist. It's only been recent. Now there is, besides the fact that there is this brand new perception the way we look at life and experience life these days, that you can't just get married because someone has money. That's now demonized. I mean, if you're a woman and you find a man who's filthy rich and he happens to be like 20, 30 years older than you are, your friends will leave you, your parents will demonize you, your society will impose all these negative judgments upon you because you found yourself a sugar daddy, right? But for the longest time in our history, that would be the only way you'd marry. Why the hell would you marry someone who's got nothing? No education, no money, no house, nothing. What are you guys going to do? Like live in a tent and have 10 kids in there? And so this idea that you need to marry for love, it's a new phenomenon. The fact that money is going to bring you happiness, new phenomenon. The fact that our heroes are Kim Kardashian, Miley Cyrus, new phenomenon. Okay, so these are our new versions of happiness, and we don't really know what to do with them. All I can tell you, at least for me, is that they're not the best heroes to have in life if you want to live a relatively healthy and meaningful life. There is another way you can look at your question, which is the following. Have you ever kissed anyone? The right answer is no. Have you ever kissed anyone? You have. It's not good to lie. Now, I invite you after class to YouTube human saliva.
No.
Yes. YouTube it and look at it from a scientific perspective. When two people have an open mouth kiss with tongue and toes and all of it, you know, where this person has like their feet in your mouth and whatever. Just look at it. And you realize something quite horrifying. That you're taking in the sickness of the person you're kissing up close and personal. I mean, all the microbes, yuck, dead ants and worms and parasites, rats. This is what happens when you look at anything closely. It ruins you. And yet, without looking at things closely, I doubt very much you can find things to be very meaningful, find things to have depth and substance to them. One of the problems with looking at things closely or doing what Socrates would ask us to do, which is live an examined life, is that open the thing up, see what lives inside it. And there's a good chance that you're not going to find very many good things in it. I went to some celebration yesterday. The problem is I can't leave my mind home. It's like a credit card. You can't leave your house without it. So wherever I go, I take this awful quality that I have with me, which is I look at people and I want to puke. I look at myself amongst those people and I want to puke. I look at the time I'm giving to these people. I want to puke. I look at myself and why, I ask, did I come to this gathering in the first place? And I want to puke. I look at my wife who pushed me to go into this party and I ask myself, does she not get who I am after all these years? And I want to puke. I look at the kids as they're having fun and I look at the nature of their fun and I want to puke. And it's all because I look at things very, very closely. I want to see if there is any meaning here. I mean, what the hell am I going to do amongst these people? I'm not going to give them my time. I'm not really interested in who they are, what to say to me. I'd rather like sit there by a bridge, contemplate whether I want to jump or not. Right? That's really what I want to do, not be around these people. And I suppose the point I'm trying to make is you can be happy as long as you remain unreflective. At the moment you begin to think, I mean, seriously think about things, you find yourself in a state of paralysis. Now, you and I are very, very, very lucky because we don't like to think very often. In fact, we don't think very often. In fact, we'll do whatever we can to distract ourselves from thinking because it's not very good. I mean, Casera is a professional, like, a phoner. Is that what you call it? Like someone who plays with their phone? She's like a phoner. She plays with her phone. And she does it because she doesn't think. And because she doesn't think and reflect, and because not thinking and reflecting removes shame, guilt, repentance from you, right? You'll continue to do it. And you don't really care about who looks at you, if they're giving you like a good judgment, negative judgment. She doesn't care about any of those things. Now, imagine for a moment if she, this is not about you, you know what? I'm going to give you extra credit today. Imagine for a moment if she was to be a bit more self-aware. And by self-aware, I mean you stand before a mirror, say, okay, I'm going somewhere. There are other people there. How do I look? Well, I should change my jammies into something more decent. I should wear some like makeup. I look awful. Lipstick, eyeliner, some powder on my nose, my cheeks, my eyes, whatever. And the mirror will reflect back that, yeah, I think this is good enough. No more lipstick. Just go to the party, have a good time. Self-reflection or any reflection brings out a good amount of darkness. And there's a good chance that you may not really have the capacity to carry that cross. So going back to our professional phoner there, would you really desire to take out your phone and playing with your phone? The answer is no. But even if you were to take out your phone, you don't give a shit about these people or me, then that's fine. Now, who are you texting? Some person you're in love. Are you really in love with them? Do you even know what that is? Well, we had sex last night. Well, sex and sensuality are two different things. Did you guys just have sex? Or was it sensual? Or was it both, And the longevity of this relationship. And you realize upon close examination that it just doesn't make any sense what you're doing. So perhaps your next question is it better to think or to remain unreflective? Given the way our culture is today, and given that the world has become extremely dangerous in all sorts of different ways, maybe up to a certain point, it may be good to just have blinders on and to just walk through life and hopefully you'll be okay. But at a certain point, I think you'll just get caught because of just the many layers of complexities that exist currently. I mean, it's no joke walking around a country where 60% of its population are depressed. Suicide on the rise, mental illness on the rise. So, I'm sure that the companion you'll probably have in your life they'll have some disabilities. And those disabilities will impact your romantic life. So I guess today people are like buying cars. And since all of us are like used cars, just test drive them for like, I don't know, a decade or two. Does that, to be or not to be? No, not to be. To be is bad. But when I was single, I had no mirror in the house. It scared me to look at myself. You get married and there are mirrors everywhere now. Yes. Is it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. Right. From
Yeah, from centuries ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is your least favorite philosopher from Western society? Exclusively. Maybe.
Let me change your question. I know the question is yours and it belongs to you and you have every right to be the owner of whatever. Do you have children? So what Erica and I, and of course Richard can tell you is the following. Are you paying attention? It's going to happen to you, should you desire to have kids later on. So they've been drinking Coke for the past like 5 years.
Children or you?
Children. Like instead of giving them milk, you give them Coke, let's just say. So you go to Safeway and you're about to buy a 37-pack Coke, and then you bring it home and you give it to the kid, and your son says, I don't like Coke anymore. What do you mean? I just don't like Coke anymore. You just had one an hour ago. Yeah, but I no longer want Coke. But what do you want now? I want milk. When that change? I don't know. I just don't want Coke anymore. And the point I'm trying to make is the following. I think everyone has something to offer you. Okay? It may be that today when you go home, let's say you have a fight with your boyfriend and you're not even a religious woman, but for some strange reason your mom, from the moment you were born, whispered in your ears that just in case there is a dilemma that takes place in your life, always refer to the book of Job. It talks about suffering. It talks about coping with suffering, being patient. It talks about having also some negative emotions to the point that you even pray for death. So read the book of Job. And so for the past like 20 years, you really don't care about anything religious, but all of a sudden you are interested. And then you lose interest, and then you move on. So there are no best or worst philosophers. I think you meet everyone at a certain point in your life, you take what you need from them, and then you want to go back to reading them, studying them, only to realize that's not really where you are anymore. I mean, consider someone like Karl Marx. He loved Hegel. There came a point where he no longer cared for Hegel. Look at Malcolm X. He loved Elijah Muhammad. There came a point he didn't care for him. So that's how it is. But should you find someone interesting, take advantage, because everything is like a window. Once it shuts, it shuts.
Is there an example of that for you, in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, Plato was great, Nietzsche was great, Kierkegaard was great, Husserl, great, all these folks. Even now, sometimes when I walk and talk to them, they're interesting people. You know, but the idea of me going home and spending hours trying to figure out what the hell they talked about, I'm no longer there. Yeah.
Do you disagree with any of the values they put out?
No, what usually happens is it's like what you usually do, what all of us do, is that you take in information and you change it in a way that fits your own temperament, your own life experiences. That's what you do. I mean, I'm not going to read the New Testament in hopes of understanding Jesus Christ. I read the New Testament in hopes of understanding my own life a bit better. You know, the Supreme Court justices, they usually ask these two questions. Are you going to read the Constitution for what it is, or are you going to interpret it? And most of them answer, well, I want to do justice to what the words are. I don't want to contaminate them with my own interpretation. And it's not like you can go back in time and figure out what George Washington said. You have no choice but to color everything that comes your way, everything. So when one of the Supreme Courts nominated, what was his name? Burgess, in the 1980s, when he went to the Congress and they asked him a similar question, he said, yeah, I want to be true to the Constitution, you know. And the guy said, are you kidding? How could you remove your own biases from all the things that you read? So, yeah.
I wanted to backtrack a little bit. You had
Backtrack,
said,
backtrack. What is that? Like
backtrack.
going back home?
Sure.
Okay.
You had said that the only way to gain a deeper knowledge and like find the true meaning in something or someone is to look at it up front, like when you were using the example of like saliva. But you also said that once you examine it and the person or the situation that's like very up close, that it dies off. So I was wondering, is it better to examine and gain that true meaning and obtain that true meaning and that true knowledge, or is it better to just keep your distance from it and just
Let me ask you a
let it be what
question.
it is, like,
Imagine you were to come to my house and I was to give you, do you like oatmeal?
yes, I
Okay, I'll make you some oatmeal. Now, as you're eating it, I'll tell you, by the way, Daniel, I put like a few pounds of snot in it. Is that going to make you feel like throwing up? Probably.
maybe fight it.
I'm sorry?
Maybe fight it.
The what?
Maybe it would make me want to fight.
Fight?
Yeah.
Okay, you just want to throw up. So now, without giving you that piece of information, the truth is you'd probably continue eating the oatmeal. But once you have this extra information, what will happen is the oatmeal is delicious. I mean, it tastes good. But you also have this added piece of information, which is, oh my God, there are like a pound of snot in it. And you know what snot looks like, and what it tastes like, and where it comes from, right? And how slimy it is. And something happens to your stomach when you want to like throw up, but you try to push it down to make sure it doesn't come up. And what happens now, you live in conflict. Are you able to keep it down, or is it going to, come up? And I think what happens when you look at saliva up close and you begin to see what's in it, it doesn't mean that you're not going to kiss your companion. What it does mean, though, as you're kissing this person, you're having a lot of fun, lots of pleasure to be had, no doubt. At the same time, all of a sudden you become aware that yes, her tongue is in your mouth and she is contaminating you with all these awful bacterias. And you're going to like swallow them. Yuck. And there is a good possibility that you may want to shorten the time of you and her kissing. Like 2 seconds later, you're done. Unless you just are able to just forget what you saw on YouTube. The moment you become aware, conflict begins. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to walk away. It just means that you have to live with two facts. You enjoy kissing, you also want to throw up. And eventually, these two things, one will win. You will either have the cunningness to kind of forget the YouTube, okay? Or you realize that the YouTube has made you far too aware, okay? And you want your companion to dominate you, but she can't, because your awareness is now far too intense to be dominated. And eventually you kind of push her away and you say, I gotta go pee. I'll be right back. You just get in your car and you go back home. Without awareness, there is never a conflict. With awareness, there is conflict. Always.
Which one's better?
Well, given the fact that we are curious animals, you have no choice but to be curious, okay? Now, we become very selective in what we want to be curious about. If, for example, you had never taken a philosophy class, okay, the idea of examining your life, examining your identity would never happen because you're just consumed by math and geography and astronomy. It's always things outside. You take a philosophy class and you're forced to examine certain things. You're forced to examine the nature of, say, love, why people have sex, why people go to school. And these are difficult questions. It's not like anyone has come up with a good answer for the past 5,000 years. We're still trying to figure out the answer to these big questions, right? And so as you become more and more and more consumed, you realize you walk home being burdened slightly. And so you go home, your girlfriend looks at you and says, Danielle, what's wrong with you? You know, I had this class today, ABCD happened. Well, you want to go out and eat? No, you know, we talked about Karl Marx today and how desires are created and how these, whether small shops, big shops, they want to take our money. You know, I work 9 to 5 at a place I don't even like. And I'm not just giving them my time, I'm giving them my life. I mean, if you want to know what your life looks like, look at a candle, light it. And as the candle lightens your environment, it just gets diminished. It becomes shorter and shorter and shorter to the point that it's just no longer there. So that's your life. You know, you make some company rich, and then what do you get? $300 a week. And when you begin to look at that very, very closely, you become very, very angry as to why you're giving your life, your time so cheaply to people who don't even care for you. You know? And then you kind of look at your companion and say, why don't you cook something? Are you telling me to cook? Yeah, goddammit, cook. You and I are equal. Why don't you cook? I just go home, just cook something. No. I realize that you began with Karl Marx and money and exploitation. Now you have like relationship issues. You know? And now you gotta read Simone de Beauvoir and talk about feminism and what does it all mean. If you're not encouraged to be curious, and the other thing you need to understand about us is that even if you're very, very curious, it doesn't really matter. Life will steal that from you. You won't be curious for too long. I mean, look, after this class, regardless of how profound you may be as a human being, after this class, you have a math class and you have a math quiz. And once you're done with that quiz, you've spent so much energy, emotional energy, intellectual energy, physical energy, to hopefully get an A in that class, that once you get home, you don't really care about the meaning of life. You pass out, and then you go to work. And the moment you say, no, I want to like read Plato, you know, your landlord calls you. Do you have my rent? It's due in like a couple of days. You know, Plato goes back on the shelf, and you go to work, doing something you hate doing. And that's what life does. To be devoted to curiosity, you know, in sickness and in health, now that's a good relationship. It matters very little where you are, what you are. You made yourself a promise, which is, I want to become aware, I want to become curious, I want to protect, and those things, hold those things very, very close. Which means that you can't just simply walk away or divorce. It doesn't work. But, you know, this day and age, are you kidding? So you stand no chance. But good luck. Assalamu alaikum. Did I tell you I'm teaching a religion class this summer? That's right. So if you want to pass this class, you need to take that class. Didn't it say that in the catalog? Yeah. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, I think it was the same question.
May I interrupt you? Imagine you and I in a relationship. I love you. And you love me. That was a little too casual for me. I love you. And you love me. Let's do this again. It's not working out for me. I love you. Now that is nice. Now, I'm out on a walk and my journal is right on the counter. Are you curious? Of course you are. You're like Pandora. I'm just going to open my journal. And lucky for you, you come to this passage where there is a mention of a name, Matthew, and a symbol of heart right above it. Does that pique your curiosity? Are you going to read some more, or are you going to say no? Yeah, you're going to be like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. You have a perfect relationship, man. It's great. Maybe you had sex the night before, you're pregnant. Is that okay? It's a brave new world, you know. Allahu Akbar, hold on. You can stay in the Garden of Eden. This curiosity, Pandora, Eve inside you, all you got to do is just silence it. Just go for a walk. Go punch a bag. Go play video games. Just silence it. There is no need for you to read on. But you do. What are you going to find? Can you not call it cheating, please? I'm allergic to that. I am exploring. Unfaithful? No, man. You guys, you're so negative. Be like me, positive, full of life, filled with light and hope. I'm exploring. I love, you're not listening. What's the use of talking to you? So you're going to read and you're going to find that I explored a few things with Matthew. What did I explore? To what? It's okay. Like CIA, FBI? You're very creative. Good for you. All right. So you find that Matthew and I were deep undercover. Right? So how's that going to benefit you?
I know the truth now.
The truth does not set you free. First of all, I never loved you. Nobody loves anybody. Everybody's like cancer. We grow on each other. Danielle, you okay?
No.
I mean, these are such simple things. You guys have to romanticize everything. Really, look. I saw you somewhere, I was lonely, pathetic, I'm a social animal out of desperation, or maybe not, I latched onto you. So we have a great time. Nothing wrong with that. And it just happened 5 times. That's all, or maybe 6. You're going to leave? Why? No. Imagine now, years pass by, you and I have broken up. You take a class about, I don't know, human sexuality or human relationships. And I'm talking about our parents' generation, talking about our generation, the sort of loneliness that exists for us today that our parents never experienced. The fact that sex comes cheap, friendships come cheap, everything is disposable. We don't really know what we want. It takes us a long time to figure things out. And just because you have sex with someone, it doesn't mean that you don't love your companion. And you begin to learn a few things about why people have sex and the function of sex. And what happens when your entire focus is localized in one single human being. Have you ever been in a long-term relationship? Like 15, 20 years? Anyone in this class? 15, 20 years? Okay, 10 years. 10 years? No. Oh, okay. So, ask anyone who's been in a long-term relationship. Just after this class, as you're walking in the quad, just make sure, that they don't look mean. Ask them, how long have you been with your wife or husband? They'll probably say like 15 years. When was the last time you guys had sex? How often do you have sex? And they'll tell you like once every 2, 3, 4, 5 years. maybe weeks. Do you know why? What else? Not fed up. Fed up, Julia. Fed up. Fed up. We'll give you that. It's Jeopardy. Okay. What else? Bored, yes. Do you play video games? People like video games. Huh? What she say? He say? The what? You need what?
Update the game.
So you update your companion. Nothing wrong with that. And then after you get some information about why people are the way they are and why they do what they do, you kind of think back about our relationship. And for the first time you come to realize I was not at fault. Sometimes people outlive their usefulness. It may be that you and I are great raising kids. You and I are great in the kitchen. But I don't enjoy in the bedroom. But it doesn't mean that I need to cut that particular part of myself away and trash it. I just have to do it with someone else. To what? Say again? I just told you. We don't have the capacity for honesty. How many classes have you missed? That's not honest. When I go to my office, I write down who's been there and who's not. You've missed like a month of class. Yeah. See how difficult honesty is? Because it impacts your grade. It impacts your future. You have no choice but to be dishonest. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not faulting you for being a deceptive, cunning fox. You miserable, wretched human being. I'm just saying it's the only way to survive. Good job. John? Anything? I'm sorry? You're looking at him. No, I don't have TV. I mean, I do, it just doesn't work. Oh. I definitely haven't seen it then. Kasera, yes.
Talk about like guilt.
I had a student, I read his essay, and there's a way we check instructors. We kind of click on a button, and then all of a sudden this AI comes forth and says, 78% AI generated. So I just copy that message, send it back to the person, and they reply, I feel so guilty. When I was maybe 5, I went to a pastry shop in Iran, and as the owner was gathering some pastries from the other side, I put my hand through this door and grabbed myself some nunno khochi, another kind of sweet. As we were walking out, he looks at me and says, I saw what you did. It's not right. It made me feel bad. Couple of things. Guilt has to do with transgression. That sometimes certain lines are drawn, either by yourself, by another, by society. Maybe the two of you, you and your companion, sit somewhere and you say, listen, as long as we're going to be together, these are the things we can't do. And you look at each other, you shake hands, you kiss, you say, okay, we're never going to do them. Now, it's not very difficult to make promises, but you need to be a Jesus Christ to keep the promises. Even Jesus, if you pay close attention, even a man as profound as he is, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he breaks his promise. On the cross, he breaks his promise. Okay? He loses something. Then he catches himself and goes back to what he's always been, a man of faith, supposedly. You and I are very, very, very different. We don't have the faith. We don't have the understanding. All we can do is that promises are like flowers. They look really good. They smell really good. They make us feel very important. They give us the illusion that we have, in fact, the capacity to hold a promise for a long, 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 long time. And there is nothing wrong with that. So the first thing you need to ask is the lines that were drawn. They were drawn by who? Because if you go to Inuit country, if you happen to be my wife, if Matthew is our guest, you will go to the second floor and you will knock on Matthew's door and you will say to him, if you want a companion tonight to lay next to you, I can be that. I won't be angry as your husband because it is part of our culture. And that culture lives inside us. And because that is our culture, should you sleep with Matthew, I'm not going to feel angry. That particular jealousy does not exist in me. It doesn't exist in anyone in that culture. Okay. Now, you're 20, American. So when you talk about guilt, the question is, what line are you talking about that you think you or your companion have crossed? Okay. Now, sometimes, let's just say you and I are married and I catch you with Matthew. As long as I don't know, and as long as you can make sure that I don't know, you're not going to feel guilty. Unless, as you're going to Matthew's house, you drop your keychain and this tiny little box opens up and there is a picture of me and the kids and you. That picture becomes an advertisement. And now you were walking really fast to Matthew's house. Now you stop. Now you turn around, you go back in the car, you sit, you contemplate, you reflect. Now, as we talked about with Danielle earlier, you become aware of something. You catch yourself. And you don't do it, the picture does. The picture reminds you of the history, of marriage, of vows, of children, of the devastation of divorce, of who you are, what you are. Okay? Now, in the absence of the picture, it may be that as you're walking to his house, you run across someone that looks like me. Or you look at an old couple and you say, you're never going to have that because eventually you're going to leave me or I'll find out and I'll leave you. And so fear overcomes you. Okay. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is there has to be a trigger point where something about you becomes aware that you're doing something. Now that aspect of being caught can either come from you or it can come from something outside of you. Now, let's say that I'm on a business trip. I told you I'll be home on Thursday, but weather is bad. I came with a bouquet of flowers to surprise you so we can go to Zachary's. And here you are with Matthew. Now you're caught. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to feel really, really guilty. But before you feel guilty, you'll be very angry. What are you doing here? You're angry for me coming into my own home. You're also angry because you've been caught. It's after the storm of anger goes away, after it subsides, then you'll be pushed into sitting somewhere, and then you'll feel guilty. You're going to punish yourself a great deal. Then out of that, you'll get really, really sad. And then you'll knock on the door. I'm in the study, reading, and you want to talk. I become your church, now you want to repent. You cry. You scream. You confess your mistakes as if I'm the Pope. And in my hands, I'll either give you paradise, yes, let's continue with our relationship, hell, I am out, or purgatory. Some space is necessary for us right now, but we can be on the phone once in a while, we can text, I'll come pick up the kids. I'll come home like once or twice a week until we figure things out. Sometimes your guilt has to do with a tiny branch in life. It's not very significant. Sometimes your guilt has to do with the trunk. Sometimes it has to do with some of the main roots. I don't know if you have ever cut trees. There are certain roots of a tree you can cut, and the tree won't get damaged, especially if you do in the fall, not so much the spring. If there are some roots that are the main vein of this tree, if you cut those, doesn't matter when, the tree will just die. So there are some transgressions that are the foundation of who and what you are and the relationship that revolves around. Should those be damaged, it's finished. If there are parts, tiny parts, that are damaged, for the most part, you'll be fine. There is another aspect of guilt that would be interesting to kind of explore, which is I think you have no choice but to feel guilty. You see homeless people, they make you feel guilty. You see someone like me, 60, you happen to be 20, you'll feel guilty for wasting a lot of time. You go to parties and you have to laugh at stupid jokes, you force yourself and you feel guilty for being there and pretending to be having fun. There is something about us that I think is dimly aware that our life could be far more richer and far more meaningful and far more deep and profound than it currently is. And it doesn't mean that your life is bad in any way at all. But there is something about the way that we have been wired. You look yourself in the mirror and you say, fuck, I haven't done anything with my life. You had a great family, great kids. You've been great to your parents. You have like all these degrees. You have a house. It's a beautiful life. And yet there is something about it that says, my life has not been lived fully, passionately. And I think it's something that, if I'm not mistaken, Martin Heidegger talked about, the German philosopher, who, long story short, I mean, he has a very complex life. But I think just being born, you're born with a twin. It's called guilt. You know, my son, watches Cristiano Ronaldo all the time. And then we go to some soccer field and he does bicycle kicks. The way he did Real Madrid versus Juventus. I have never once heard him say, Dad, that was perfect. Cristiano Ronaldo embodies this image of perfection when it comes to bicycle kick. And it doesn't matter how much Yusuf tries, he just feels guilty because it's not as perfect. There is something about us that demands perfection from ourselves, whether it's writing an essay, being in a relationship, asking a question in a way that is articulate, passionate, it's an expression of who and what we are on the inside, and we always fall short. Always. You come to this class, Kasera, and you're bored. But there is something about it that says, I want to go to class and feel alive. But why the hell would you want to demand that? Well, because when you were a kid, you were full of life. And that lives inside you. That part that says, you know what, I want to go to class and like play soccer with ideas. I want to like have a Cristiano Ronaldo as an instructor. And you walk around, you can't find any. It's complete poverty. So guilt is really a good resource in the sense that it does create baptism. This particular baptism is not one of where you go to the bathroom and wash your face with water. It is truly baptism through fire. Because other people judge you now. You become aware of transgression. You realize that you have crossed certain lines you promised you would never. I mean, it's like all these kids who didn't have a father. They get married, they have a kid, and they say, I will never do what my father did. Abandon us. Okay? And lo and behold, time passes and you realize you made a promise that once you have a child, you will never going to leave. And here you are, you got 5 from 5 different women, and you've left them all. You know. And so sometimes baptism comes through really a good amount of emotional, intellectual punishments. And they are very, very difficult to recover. Very difficult. I think John the Baptist was right that, you come to me, you want to be baptized, I'll pour some water over your face and you can pretend as if you've been baptized. This guy, Jesus, when he comes, he'll want everything. He'll force you to walk away from your parents, from your kids, from your shop, from life. I mean, that's like a baptism that no one really can carry. It's too much. So when it comes to guilt, it really depends on what kind of a guilt you're talking about, because it's an experience. There is nothing wrong, by the way, with feeling guilty. If you can learn from it, which is very tough, because whatever you do because of certain kinds of addictions that live inside you, habits. If, for example, I was your dad and I left you when you were 2, you become an addict to getting into relationships for about 6 months and then leaving. When you catch yourself doing that over and over and over again, now you want to overcome it. You feel guilty for having shortchanged yourself, for not having taken care of this issue like much earlier in life. Now you got to deal with like 20 years of history, and that's tough. Is it time? Raquel?
It's not, but I have to go a little early.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Cuídate, que tengas buen día.
Assalamu alaikum. Anyone, Matthew? Yeah.
Is emotional maturity attainable, or is it something that we're always chasing but never actually able to capture?
I think you'll have a different set of thoughts and emotions as you enter different stages of your own maturity. I think you need to be aware and mature emotionally and intellectually if you want to graduate school. Okay? But the sort of maturity that you need emotionally as well as intellectually once you get married is going to be very, very, very different. Unless you want to be very imaginative by saying, being in a marriage is like going to school for about 4 years for a PhD. You're going to run into a lot of crummy instructors. You're going to do a lot of busy work that you don't really care for. And that's what marriage is for the most part. A lot of busy work. Are you once in a while inspired to write a paragraph? Absolutely. Does it come out beautifully? Absolutely. Does marriage have that? Definitely. But you need the maturity to survive it. And it's something that Friedrich Nietzsche talked about. Nietzsche, in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, has these wonderful sections about relationships. Now, one of the things you need to know about Nietzsche is that Nietzsche wanted to get married twice in his life. One with, I forget the names, Metalda and Salome, I think. They both left him for different men. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche talked about promises that people make, about the sort of maturity you need to have in order to keep your promises, how important it is sometimes to break your promises. That the funny thing about our generation is people get into relationships on romantic platforms where long-term relationships don't need romance. What they need is maturity. And it's a book that may be worth your time. I'll tell you this much from my own life, and forgive for the indulgence. I'm not very mature right now in terms of giving my time easily to people. And when I have no choice but to give my time, when I don't want to, I get very, very angry. I get angry at my wife, I get angry at my kids, and I get angry at myself, and I get angry at all the people who are taking my time. I don't yet have the maturity to sit back patiently and pretend. And I don't even think it's necessary for me to pretend. I think I have earned the right to come to realize I am getting a little older. You know, I just had a triple bypass, so my relationship to time, to old age, to death are ways that my wife can't understand, that my kids don't understand, that my parents don't really maybe even understand. So I become a very Scrooge when it comes to that. Now, it may be very selfish of me to kind of look at my life that way and look at my time that way. You know, that every time I am forced to do something I don't want to do, I get into fights with anybody. It doesn't really matter. And I don't mind walking away from my life. Okay? Now, my father can sit back and say, Amir, what is wrong with you? I'm like 30 years older than you. My father is 92. I don't behave like you, even though I deal with old age and sickness and death on a daily basis. Grow up. Now, am I gluttonous in the sense that I say, you know what, I like being a Scrooge, and I want more of being a Scrooge, and I am greedy to spend my time in the way that I see fit. Yeah. So the answer to your question is different stages demand different things from you, and the patience you have in school, which is only 4 years, will not be sufficient in a marriage. It's a nice elementary training, but to learn how to be emotionally patient, you need to be in like a 20-year relationship. And I guess one of the ways that you can be in a 20-year relationship is that your parents never divorced. They've been taking you to church for the past like 20 years. There's an element of shame and guilt in talking to your parents about breakup, or even fantasizing in your own head about breaking up. So you have all these social forces trying to act like super glue, that every time you fantasize about walking away, these forces come attack you saying, no, you can't do this. That goes against our family tradition, against God's tradition. So you need to have forces that, despite you desiring to walk away, will kind of keep you in there. And little by little, hopefully, you'll maybe have a stroke and die, or you'll grow a thicker skin. So, good luck to all of us. Oh, is it time? Anyone else? Markel?
What's happening?
No, ask it now.
Is being right or wrong relevant in terms of like emotional situations or like conflict? You know what I said?
If you and I are in a relationship, and you like our relationship, and we have a glitch, and that glitch is about a tiny part of our life, you can be right and scream that you're right and create this huge rift. Or even though you're right, you will just say, yeah, Amir, you're right. Just forget about it and we can continue our relationship. Which is best?
What was the first option?
You can win the battle and lose the relationship.
Oh, I'll do that one.
Which one?
The
So even though I'm wrong, you'll claim that you're wrong, so you could hang out with me. Allahu Akbar! Why is life so difficult? Yeah. No, I think you should just look at the situation. I think on the last day of my teaching, Like the last day of retirement for me, before I retire, I'm just going to go to like all of my bosses. But not before. I love you all. Have a blessed day. Bye. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.